Okay, per-game review and end of the day review from yesterday. Kind of a Here it is, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Get up before, do my thing. So yesterday, just kind of a regular day, slow hard cut, kind of a thing. I'm not a real big fan of slow cuts like that, but that's where the skill kind of comes into it when you got a big ass pile. I don't want to say janky rock because it's never janky rock. You can always make something decent out of it, but when you got big sheets and stuff like that, and you're only getting not really big sheets, but big stuff, and you're only getting one or two pieces out of it. That's kind of a hard cut, and you got to watch it because it's got a lot of reed in it and a lot of jack in it, and brown edges and shit like that, where you can't stack anything up, and you got to really measure out every cut, and you're not just pulling out 3 footers or a standard piece of pattern. Every piece is different. So cutting, I was cutting 6 inch, 4 footers. I was cutting 3 footers. I was cutting some pattern stuff out of stuff, 2x18s and 3x18s and 1x3s and stuff like that for pattern. You know, little stuff that's a little bit jankier might have reeds in it. That stuff you want to make. Your pattern rock. Because you can kind of get away with some stuff in 2 inch. Having a little reed in the corner and stuff like that. That stuff's generally all right. But you can't have that stuff in tread because you got to burn them edges and stuff. So generally that's what I do every day. I come over, I get a stack or something, come in, stack a bunch of treads or something like that, and I'll burn them on the wall there and use the fork, put them up on the table. Usually, if they're like that, I'll double stack my table. I'll take one, I'll put it in the far back, and I'll put one in the front there, and line up an edge, line up the front edge, cut the first one, cut the second one, turn my table, cut them. Um, Again, if they're both the right same size, that's really good because you don't have to think too much about it. If you got good rock, you can just kind of throw it down and go. But when they're really tight like that, you gotta be real anal about your cuts and stuff like that, your measurements, working the edges and stuff. You got to run them a little slower if you're real tight on that edge, so that way you're not gonna staircase the one edge of it. You want nice square cuts. Um, Again, like I said, if my bay wasn't so loaded down, I could probably do more and stack cut stuff. But right now, I just got treads as far as the eye can see in my setup there. So, little treads and a pallet setup, and I was doing other treads and stuff like that. So I got a tread order, I got a pattern order, I got a secondary tread order had to be rock faced, and I got a 3 foot tread order. That's all in my set there. That's just 3 orders, and one of them's that one tread order is a big one. I got all them different sizes: 14s, 12 sixes, 12 fives, sixes. I got 6 different pallets of treads at least, if not more than that. Plus a scrag kind of 4 footers that I haven't really been. I don't have an order for it, but sometimes they come off. In the cut like that. Um, Given certain rock, you want to yield it the best that it'll go. If I notice it, if it's good, I'll run it like that. I'll just make the 3 footer out of it and throw it away. But right now I need it. But for a while there, I wasn't running those. So you don't cut a 3 footer when you have 4 footers. So anyways, got all that going. Now, normally, again, I don't know when they're going to be pulling stuff out. I know I was getting all that done yesterday, and I was running some of that tread rock for the need to be rock faced, and some of that pattern I got to do. But normally, again, I'll just take, I like it when I get treads coming in. Already cut off the, 5 and 4 footer there. They cake it on the 4 or the 5 footer. the big gantry in the building there, and then they'll bring it over to the 4-footer and they'll slice it into treads for me. If they're really long, that's nice. Anything over 8-9 feet that I can definitely gonna get something out of, 12-footers or 12-inch stuff like that. It's nice because I can just put it all on a double pallet, or one of the guys can unload it while I'm still cutting, and I'll just take them and roll them down. Take 4 or 6 of them at a time, lay them all down, burn out the faces of them, and then I'll stack them accordingly. And I'll just do 3 rows on my table. That way, and if 2-inch, you can go anything up to 6 inches. So 1.5 you go 4 pieces, or 2-inch you go 3 pieces high. 1.5 you go 4, and single-inch pieces, which if I'm running pattern or something like that, it's not coming off in treads, but you go 6 high, and then you can just rip the whole thing. But I'll triple stack them on the table, and I'll line them all up with the laser and bar them down, and I'll just nip off the ends of them and then unload the table like that. It's a hell of a lot faster. It's that volume game that I like. I like doing it like that. You can work a lot of product like that. You don't usually have to be so finicky with it. As long as you're lining everything up on the pallet before you go putting it on the table. And you stack them all up, put a wedge in, and you get them to the table. Use a wedge so you're not chipping edges when you're pulling out with the fork truck. And you use a pry bar to slide out and stuff like that. And then you just got to dial your saw. And usually by the time it takes to cut all that stuff, because you got to run it a little slower. I'm not going to give you my numbers. I had to stem test those numbers. Just like a CNC machine or something like that, you want to run it to max performance without damaging the product or damaging the equipment. Of course, you don't want the rock to kick and bust off teeth on the saw and stuff like that. And you got to figure out your dynamics. Keep the saw on the back left, load the table, line up an edge, line up an edge, line up an edge, without turning the table, which is a big trick there. And then you can just load all those down, start cutting them, unload the next set, roll them down, start burning them. By the time that first cut's done, you'll have them all laid down. You come back, you'll reprogram the saw on the next cut. Figure out your measurements, what it's going to be, an 8-footer, 7-footer, 6-footer, 8s, 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 But with the 3 on the table like that, I can get 3 different sizes as long as I laid them out on the pallet correctly. You pre-measure them, and then you put them together accordingly, make sure the edge is all lined up, and then you can tighten them up when you get them to the table. You do all that, you burn the next set, you stack that up on the second hit. On the third hit, you're finishing off all the edges that you did. You're tapping them and torching them. And then by the time that's done, that last cut will be done. So you unload that whole table. And you'll unload all that table, and then you start that over again. You just keep doing that. If there's 6, 5, if I can get 9 at the table at once, that's great. Usually that takes too long. I'll be lucky to get 5 to the table at the time. That's given how long the pallets are and everything like that, how wide I can actually roll some of them out. Usually 5 is about my number, but it works out in the timeline and how long it takes to cut and how I have to tap edges and finish edges and stuff like that. So that's usually the game right there. But that's not what I have been doing right now. Again, I've been working some slab stuff, so. That's different. That's a different animal. I know I generally have all that done. I got to go outside in the yard here pretty soon. Sometime this morning, I got some pattern rock. I got a couple of pieces of pattern rock coming off from one of the other saws that he's making a cut, but with the scrap ends he's not using. I'm cutting that stuff up into 2x3s, 2x2s, stuff like that. But I'll have to go out in the yard, and everything's all covered in snow and shit. Forklifts don't like to get in and out of that stuff, so I'll be out there shoveling shit and digging up some 3-footers out from out back. Working a lot of the recut material outside. Cutting that stuff down to 3-footers or whatever else I need. Realistically, I can't really use much out there unless I find some 5-footers or some 6-footers that I need for my order to finish it out. But I'll have to be hunting all that stuff out. That's usually a pain in the dick. Usually when it's, nice and there's no snow on the ground and I don't have to worry about, pallets being all covered in snow and frozen solid. Because you really got to be careful with that stuff. You don't want to bring in a pallet of variegated. You don't want to bring in a pallet of full color and you can't see any of it. You used to being in a dark mill where you can actually kind of see the color of the rock and spray everything off and really get a good look at it. But, a lot of stuff we use in our hold area is kind of material that we can't really use, couldn't really use for an order, so, or it's already been cut and it was just, something was wrong with it, or it wasn't conducive for some reason, so it's not so bad when you're going big down to 3-footers, but, I need 3-footers, and there's a lot of 4-footers and 5-footers out there that are kind of already done, and so it'll either just be a model of separating that stuff into the pallet that I need, which really doesn't give me the orders that I need to get done to clear out my floor, but I'll clear out some of that space outside. It's just a pain in the ass doing that stuff because you can't read the rock worth fuck with it's all covered with snow. You can't open it up to look at it, get a piece. The forks don't like to get in and out of that snow stuff, and there's not really any space to put anything, so I'll be outside digging for a while. Just trying to find a few pallets that I can bring in that are either the right size and color system, or looking for one of those recut pallets that I can actually just bring in and cut up for a little bit. And it's not one of those kind of cuts. If I'm lucky, I'll get a big stack or something like that. And that's usually when I like to do my running around because I can just set my saw on medium or slow depending on how long I think I'm going to be outside. So that way, my saw never stays dry. I'm always cutting that cut. I'll come back inside. My cut will be finished. I'll have a pallet ready to go, so that way it's just click, click, click. I can just bang those out. Normally I'd run something like that real hot if I was in the building tapping edges and stuff like that, but if I'm outside digging, if I gotta go do a dumpster or fill up a propane tank or whatever the case may be, I like to run it a little slower when I walk away from that saw. Just keeps it a little safer. I trust my saw and everything, but you never trust that stuff when you're walking away from it. I know the other guy next to me, we usually communicate pretty well together, and he knows when I'm outside and doing stuff like that too. Just keep an extra eye on that saw for me. But that's a whole lot of running to point A to point B and crash time. If that fucker did kick a rock or for some reason it just didn't want to behave correctly, which normally it doesn't. It's pretty good, but that's a very expensive piece of machinery, very expensive blades and stuff like that. So I just generally kind of take care of it, and I'm normally pretty hard on that thing. I work that bitch just as hard as I can. Again, I work a lot of stem testing, to figure out my floor plan, the cut ratio, Sometimes it's not always, run the saw at 12, right, or 15 or 21. It'll go up to 21 on speed. It's not really effective to run a saw like that. There's certain cuts where you can, but, you just don't want to do those things. Certain drop ratios. If you're dropping 50 at 21, man, that'll kick a rock right into the wall. Kind of leave burrs and nasty cuts and stuff, so you kind of got to slow it down to figure it there, and then you just kind of amp it up. You figure out your numbers beyond those things, and that's what the max cut will do. That's what will hold that rock on the table, whether it be a single stack or whether I'm cutting a small piece. I'll go 25-0 at a certain speed, and I'll just run it like that. It's all, I learned a lot of that from CNCing and, watching a lot of that stuff on YouTube about max performance and diversified inconsistencies. And the saw itself is generally easy. A lot of that's the floor game and going outside and getting stuff and digging around and palletizing and just doing all that stuff. So that's my day. So catch you on the next one.